Well, it took some time, it took some effort, but they have a deal. There's J.J. Watt outside NRG Stadium. They are ready to roll. Training camps open tomorrow. They open with several days of COVID-19 testing. It will be a gradual phase-in period, a ramp-up period. No one's putting pads on until the middle of August, Chris. That's usually when we're halfway through the preseason. No preseason at all this year as everyone gets ready for week one, and that's going to be the focus, getting all the players ready for week one, either with 80 guys from the get-go, or if you go with 90, you can have 90 until August 16. You have to have a split squad. I think most teams are probably going to opt to just have 80 and keep everyone together. The commissioner said after the deal was reached Friday night, training camps will begin as scheduled. We are committed to playing a safe and complete 2020 season. And I think that word complete, I think that word can be interpreted in multiple ways. It doesn't mean 256 games. It just means we're going to complete it with a Super Bowl championship that is given to someone, just like in 1982 when there were 9 regular season games due to the strike, 1987 when there were replacement players for multiple weeks and 15 regular season games.
Right.
Nobody puts an asterisk on those Lombardi trophies. Who knows what will happen this year? But they're going forward. And I think that even if there are hiccups along the way, even if there are outbreaks along the way, even if they have to cancel individual games or entire weeks, they're committed to getting this season completed with someone winning the Super Bowl and then move on to 2021.
Yeah, well, I appreciate, their stubbornness that way. I do. They are committed. And, it's something we hit on in the opening. I do think that, hey, NFL coaches, front office people, they're a little frustrated because a lot of this stuff is just getting figured out and they don't have all the laws of the land, but they're starting to see a little bit here come about, and they're starting to get a feel for how things are going to go down. These guys are in their facilities for the most part. They're seeing what's being done, to make it all work. And, just talking and texting to a few of my friends throughout the league, I think all of them feel, better now that they've been in the office and seen what's going down here. So we'll see. It was a major step, certainly, that they got some of these details figured out. Now, the big thing to me here is I know we said we're starting on time, right? We're starting on time, but we're not really starting on time because they're going to get there, right? And then it's going to be 4 or 5 days of having to go through some certain protocols, which to me, this is where I just worry about it. Like, okay, so now it's 4 or 5 days, and maybe it doesn't happen to 6 or 7 days till everything gets figured out. Now we're going into this period of we're going to train and get ready. And then, okay, now the pads period's been bumped back just a little farther, and I just hope we can get it all in before week one. That's the only thing I'm worried about right now, as an ex-player and a guy that worries about the players and all of that.
What do you mean by getting it all in?
Well, just get the players ready, having them ready to go, and really saying that they're physically in shape and ready to take on the physical rigors of an NFL football season, just as we've talked about with years without, the last CBA deal. You said it last week, injury rates were up, a little over 25%. I just worry about that. That's all I'm saying. But either way, I do feel a lot more confident about some of the steps that have been put in place here as of late.
Well, that's why they didn't want to have a preseason, because you didn't want to rush guys onto a field in a game setting when they have limited opportunity to be as healthy and prepared as they could be. But, and this is something that I think we need to be thinking about and talking about in the coming weeks. How many teams will treat this like a 12-game season with a 4-game preseason? It just so happens those 4 games in September count in the standings. But will we see, for example, in Chicago, where they don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be, will we see both Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky in September instead of August when the competition would have been resolved? Will we see a rotation more aggressively on an offensive line where some backups get real playing time in September? Will we see more use of the reserves? For 2 reasons. Number one, your starters may not be in ideal shape. And number 2, doesn't it make sense to have every guy on your roster at least in some sort of game shape and some sort of game preparedness in the event that there's a guy who is otherwise a starting offensive lineman who is positive for COVID-19, and now the backup gets thrown into the fray? At least he would have been playing some. So, Chris, I think that this unique year needs to get teams thinking very differently about the first month of the season. It's almost a hybrid regular season, preseason from the standpoint of making sure your guys are ready for October, November, December.
Yeah, no. Well, I think that's the one thing that's jumped out to me, Mike, just from talking to people around the NFL. you know, you're going into training camp this year, and really what's happening is you're going, let's get ready for week 1. That's all you're worried about. And so you're going to see high-level game planning and really all your eggs in the let's get ready for week 1 and try to win that game basket. And to me, that's where it also I look at and just another thought that came to my head, whether you got 80 or 90 guys, and because you got no preseason and things like that too, I just feel like a lot of those back-end roster guys are going to get used this summer more than ever. You know, they're going to be used really to go and, hey, you know, oh, yeah, you got a chance to make the team, wink, wink, but we really need you over there for scout team for the 70th rep today because we're trying to win week 1, and we kind of know the 53 that's going to make the team. Yeah, there's 7 or 8 of you on there that we're not sure about, but we kind of know. So we're going to get them ready, and we're going to kind of use the rest of you on the back end to just help us get ready. And that's unfortunate because, you know, some of those back end guys we know are not going to get a chance to play in the preseason or maybe get the reps that they usually would in free agency, late draft picks that might make a team, but that's so be it. And I think that's going to be more of the approaches this year, maybe. We'll see.
Let me add this point to that, though.
Right.
To the extent that one of those guys at the back end of the roster sufficiently flashes and you get to a comfort level with him during training camp that you could maybe roll with him as a starter or a key contributor, the opportunity is going to be presented to shed expensive veterans, save money in a year where you're not going to be getting your regular game day revenue, and bump cap space to next year. One of the realities of this new deal is the fact that they've already accounted for next year being down. And the salary cap would have been as low as $130 million per team, even if they play all the games. What they've done through this agreement, they have guaranteed that the salary cap will be no lower than $175 million. That's still $23 million plus lower than it is this year. So any cap dollars you save this year can be kicked to next year to give you more room to breathe. And there are some teams out there like the Eagles, Saints, Falcons, Chiefs, Steelers, Bears, Raiders, Vikings, all according to overthecap.com. They're going to be in a mess next year under the salary cap. If they have that young guy that they can pay $600,000 to this year, and they can move on from a veteran that's due to make $6 million or squeeze him into taking $2 million, every dollar saved this year is real money in the bank, and it's salary cap space on the ledger for next year. So the cynical side of me is I agree with you that a lot of these guys are going to be cannon fodder, but whoever shows they can be more than cannon fodder is going to have a chance to make the team because as it relates to management of your roster, there's an opportunity there to shed some expensive salaries and create some cap space for next year.
Yeah, no, that's a very real aspect, Mike. It's something that I still probably haven't wrapped my head around yet to think about it all the way. Like, you know, even as I was going through my spiel, you know, and as soon as you cut in there, I knew you were going to go there. And I was like, you know, you're right. It's going to be a thing this year. We're going to see some names that I don't think we expect to see come cut time in the NFL because of some of those issues and what you're talking about too. And also, you know, I don't know how this affects coaches or whatever it may be here, but when you talk about those bottom roster guys, you're getting down to your final 53. And most, like we've said, most teams know going into training camp the 42, 43 guys that are going to make the team. And there's just, you know, 7, 8, 10 spots that are kind of up for grabs. You know, this is a year where, the coach is going to have to take a little bit more of a guess than normal. You know, I don't know if they're going to get the true evaluation of some of those guys. And, you know, they're just going to have to kind of take a shot in the dark with the guy that they feel the most comfortable with. Or maybe it comes down to like what you're saying. Okay, yeah, here's a veteran we're a little more comfortable with by just a smidgen over a young guy. But, oh, that veteran's making a ton of money compared to that young guy. All right, the hell with that veteran who's just a smidgen better. Let's get rid of him and go with the young guy. And I think you're right. Those are that's the hopeful thing for those guys this year that maybe gives them a little bit of benefit of the doubt in the fact that they didn't get to prove themselves in OTAs and training camp.
Hey, we don't know what kind of shape these veterans are in as they walk through the door. The coaches are either going to be impressed or they're going to be saying, holy crap, what did you eat over the last 6 months? Because they have not been around these guys at all. One last thing before we take a break. We got plenty more to talk about as relates to the NFL NFLPA agreement. The agreement consists of a specific list of prohibited activities.
Oh, yes.
Look, I think it's there for a deterrent effect, right? I doubt anyone other than the Patriots is going to have security tailing guys to see if they go to the nightclub or do any of these other things. You can't go to indoor nightclubs, indoor bars except to pick up food, indoor house parties with 15 or more people, indoor concerts, professional sporting events other than presumably your own, or indoor church services that allow attendance above 25% of capacity. You can be fined. If you test positive, they can fight whether or not they have to pay you. You can have guaranteed money that's forfeited. I really do think that this is just a way to scare the young players into not doing things they shouldn't do. The teams aren't going to say that, but from our perspective, we look at it and say, well, it's going to be a pain in the butt to fight your players on whether or not they broke these rules. The reality is this is your hammer when the coach or the veteran quarterback is saying to these guys, you go home and you stay home every night for 5 months.
Yeah, that's right. This applies a little more guilt to the situation, too. Like if some guy does do wrong or do that, hey, we got rules. We read you the rules. You know the rules. They're right there on the walls. You walk out of the locker room every day. But the big thing will be this to me, and this is why I agree with what you're saying. At the end of the day, I think the locker room's going to police itself. That's what I think is going to happen. I think
self-police itself?
Yeah, self-police itself. And this is where I call on the Fletcher Coxes and the Aaron Donalds and the Khalil Macks of the world to where, if you hear guys on the team that you feel like are not acting appropriately outside of the facility, damn, you got to lay the smack down. You got to let them know it's just not acceptable. I mean, there's no other way to say it. The veteran leaders on these teams are going to have to keep the young guys in check and do their best to stay on top of them and make them feel, threatened or scared a little bit that they might ruin everybody's season and have that guilt laying over them that way.
Hey, and here's the other thing, too, right? Anywhere these guys go, people are going to have these, and TMZ is going to be very happy.
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of citizen journalism. We are all big brother in this
What
day
about
and
the
age,
hotline? I think they should have a hotline, too. I like how the NBA does that, where the players can call on other players, and be anonymous and telling each other.
Hey, and here's the thing. The way they've done this deal, you get paid as you play. If games are scrapped, you don't get paid for that game.
Yeah.
So if there's only 14 weeks in the season, you lose 2/16 of your salary. And you've got an incentive collectively.
To be smart.
All players in the league have an incentive. And it's not just Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's every player on every team, because if they start saying, week 3 we can't do it, week 7 we can't do it, and they end up playing 13 games, 12 games, whatever, they all lose. So that's the ultimate incentive. Not just wanting to play football, but wanting your money.
Yeah.
That is what is going to keep these younger guys in line. And I think some of the guys that may get the final roster spots, I think the GM and the coach need to put their heads together and say,
can we trust this guy? Yeah, I agree.
Do we trust this guy?
Right.
The talent's relatively equal.
Right.
But do we trust this guy?
Yeah.
Right? This guy's married.
I think
he's got
real.
a couple of little kids.
Right.
He's going to go home and he's going to stay home. This guy's single. And we've gotten to know him a little bit.
Yeah, he
seems like he likes to have a good time.
Right.
And it seems like he's got, he gives into his friends.
Right.
And, we're going to keep this guy instead. And I think the veteran leadership on the team is going to lobby for that too. They're going to want a locker room full of guys who can be trusted to act like professionals. Chris, that's going to be a real dynamic this year.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mike. I think it is. I think teams, GMs, head coaches have got to think about that aspect. And, I think you're right. The incentive about just knowing to go, man, if I'm smart and, don't do anything stupid here, I can continue to get paid and get paid big checks and continue my life and further my career. And I think that is a big incentive. But, yeah, I think it's going to be on the players and the teams and the coaches to hold these guys accountable and stay on their butts.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.